Alright, the purpose of this video is to show schedule builders how you can adjust the settings for teacher preferences and also look at some different options you can look at when you're looking at teachers during the schedule build process. So first thing, you're going to go to PowerScheduler when you want to work with teachers, and on the left hand side you're going to scroll down to the resources area and click on teachers. Just for these videos I'm going to go ahead and slide over so we're not showing all the teacher names. But we click on the teachers, and then we're going to scroll down and we're going to find a teacher we want to work with. So we're going to work with the placeholder O for Liberty High. So when we click on that teacher, we can see the different tabs that are available where we can mark things or check and see things that are going on with this teacher. There's two tabs, Matrix and Schedule. These deal with things that we've either done a partial build and imported it to check to see why it stopped before it finished, or we finished the build successfully and we're just looking to see how things turned out for teachers or overall. These two tabs will show you when you import a build what that teacher schedule looks like. That could come in handy, like I said, when you're trying to decipher, did the build end up the way we wanted it, and we're verifying things look good for that teacher if there's a special consideration for that teacher, or if the build didn't finish successfully, and it stopped on this teacher, is there something going on with their schedule that might be stopping the build from going? Otherwise, you can also click on constraints and see any constraints you've created for that teacher. You're not going to get the details, but you'll see that there are, if there are constraints related to that teacher, be it teacher part-time, teacher free, teacher pre-scheduled, things like that. That's another place you can look if the build is hanging up on a teacher. Assignments, you can see what assignments there are for the teacher, what classes they're going to teach, and what term they're going to teach them. This is also where you go to add those assignments for the teacher. So good information to have. But in general, before we get to doing the assignments, we have to make sure our teacher's preferences are set correctly. And that's this Preferences tab. So when we get into the Preferences tab, we had the video on the report for the teacher list where we could look at their, we can look at the department they're in, the preferred room. Preferences is where we go to set those. Okay, so if we're looking at placeholder O, we'll say it's a real person, and they're in the science department, I can click on Associate and choose the science department for that teacher. If their preferred room, and the disclaimer on preferred room is if you have a teacher who's in your building all day, only one all-day teacher should have a preferred room. Preferred rooms are a big deal. Don't duplicate them unless the two teachers who have the same preferred room aren't in your building at the same time. So to do a preferred room, I click on Associate, and I would pick the correct room, whatever that may be. So that's how we set those. Schedule this teacher. Are we scheduling the teacher or not? If you're not scheduling them and they need to be out of PowerScheduler, uncheck that box. There's a previous video on that. Unless we're using a fake, unless this is a fake staff member for something specific, this always free we would leave unchecked as well. Middle schools potentially will use team codes, but only middle schools do that. The maximum load status doesn't do anything, so just leave that at 0. And we don't usually do buildings or house codes. So from there, the one thing that we haven't talked about yet is the maximum consecutive periods. If you've had a new staff member added to PowerSchool for you during the year, so let's say you did use a placeholder last year because we did the build before we knew who that person was that was going to be hired, then we've now hired that person and they're in PowerScheduler, but they're set to be a maximum consecutive period of 1. That's the default. This is where we change this. If I'm going to teach 1 period in your building, you handle that by assignments. You handle that with teacher-free constraints. You handle that with teacher part-time constraints. You want to make your maximum consecutive periods for your teachers 6. There's only one time you don't want to do that. If you want to schedule me as the teacher with a break somewhere in the middle of the day, right? You can make my maximum consecutive 4. It'll either do 3 space 3, 2 space 4, 4 space 2 when it does my schedule. But typically, you want to go ahead and set everybody's maximum consecutive periods to 6 unless you're trying to make sure somebody has a floating planned period in the middle of the day. Okay, so that, and after that, you would just come down and hit Submit. This is live data, so I'm not going to hit Submit yet. But that is a quick tutorial on how you set and adjust preferences for teachers. There will be another video coming up on how to do teacher assignments.